That it wasn't. I didn't give Everton a prayer in this one. And yet, what happens? Some kids come through, make their name last night, or certainly write their names into the headlines this morning in many of the newspapers, one being the Times. Branthwaite's late intervention silences Chelsea. Fantastic young Jared Branthwaite. He's only 19. What does this tell us?
He did brilliantly, didn't he, to get on the end of that cross.
Yeah.
Ridiger, who talked up a lot recently, though, left him, didn't he, at that far post. And it's interesting because I know Simon's got some statistics, but 80% possession. Tuchel afterwards was just saying we've only got ourselves to blame. We had so many opportunities in the game, so many chances, and they're not taking them. And that's a familiar story for Chelsea. And this 3-horse race to be Premier League champions, you can't afford to be slipping up in the manner that they are. And they've gone in front. They've allowed Everton back into it yet again. They've conceded after being in front.
Yeah, well, I mean, Simon, I have to say, Branthwaite in there.
Yeah.
Others, Ellis Sims, Lewis Dobbin. I mean, brilliant to see Anthony Gordon, we know already.
I mean, you've got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, ultimately, to go there and get a result. I mean, it was Chelsea's profligacy. It was... I mean, if you look at the statistics, and I'm never one of those to go to statistics because I think journalists do that because they don't actually have any real world experience. But you look at it and say, they pay Everton have 194 passes in a game. Chelsea have 800. Of those 194 passes, 50% of them go to the opposition. They have 55% pass accuracy. They got battered out of sight, and somehow or another they've managed to come through this game. And at the end of the game, actually Everton were on the front foot.
Yeah,
they were the side looking as if they were going to go and try and win the game. But you have to look. I mean, Lukaku was brought in to fix the particular ailment that Martin alludes to, which is their lack of clinical finishing at the end of a game or during the game to be able to take these games away, because obviously the other sides have got clinical finishers in their sides. But Lukaku not being in the team might give you some indication. But when you have 81% possession, 23 shots on goal, and some of the opportunities they had last night, you've got to look at yourselves and say, Everton, what do you take from that? I mean, you see the fans are on the turn with Benitez. You see the depletion of the squad. You've seen the owner talk about his support for Benitez. You see Benitez reverting to type. We saw these sort of statistics at Newcastle. We saw him against Manchester City. I know that you're playing against teams that are far superior, but we saw when you get into the territory, and Martin will be able to speak to this far greater than I, into the territory of 19% possession of the game. The ball's in play for an average game of 60 minutes. That means that 48 minutes of the game, the opposition has the ball. I mean, that's how bad it is if you're an Everton fan watching that.
I mean, that beggars belief, man.
Well, it does. It's kind of amazing that they managed to get anything out of the game at all. But, you know, what Tuchel will be looking at is that they definitely, they're without Lukaku, but they've got enough quality in that group. I know that Mason Mount scores his 4th goal on the bounce, but somebody else has got to step up. Ziyech in there, is he doing an off? Pulisic. The goals are going to have to come in from all quarters. We've seen it, haven't we? 2 penalties from Ridiger the other day. Yeah, it's drying up a little bit for Chelsea, and when we watch City and when we watch Liverpool, it looks far easier for them to score goals at the moment than Chelsea.
But Chelsea waking up this morning in 3rd place, 8 points above 4th placed Arsenal. Did they deserve to be booed by certain sections of the Chelsea crowd last night in full time?
No, I don't believe they deserve that.
So what are these fans doing?
That's just because of the high expectations at that football club.
But it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it is, but they need to just stay patient with their team. There's a lot of people who swap these players and take them every day. They're full of quality. They're just going for a little temporary blip at the moment. Let's forget in a calendar year what they've achieved is quite remarkable, to win the Champions League with Tuchel coming in around about this time last year. Yeah. So I think it will come good in the end. I think it's just about getting personnel. Lukaku's been a big miss with this injury. It's taken him a really long time to get back. He's a big guy. These bigger chaps sometimes take longer, don't they, to find their feet again, get their fresh and sharpness.
He's been back amongst it, but he wasn't even in the squad yesterday. He wasn't even on the bench.
He had COVID.
He had COVID. That's
COVID yesterday.
He got COVID.
But previous to that, it's been a bit slow. Whether the ankle was still a problem, and he wanted to ease him back in, and he's got enough players around him to be able to do that. But nonetheless, they want him as he was at the start of the season. He was firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely.
He looked like he'd left the club a boy, come back a man.
If there genuinely is a reasonable amount of fans that have booed, then you have to question why they were booed, because the performance was pretty good. They dominated the game. They just wasted chances. Now, that might well be because Expectations have been increased. There is an expectation, certainly from me, and I'm not a Chelsea fan, that they're going to win this league this year. If I think it as a neutral, the Chelsea fans will probably think it. And they see games slipping away and they see their opposition winning, and it be that's building up the narrative. And football fans are expecting. If you increase expectation and you don't deliver on it, it's actually it's worse than having no expectations at all.
True.
Because if you don't deliver on people's emotive expectation, then you find yourself in a territory. There is a
you must have had a time again at Palace when your boys put in one heck of an effort, didn't get the result they wanted, and got booed. That must have frustrated you.
Listen, I mean, fans are entitled to cheer and boo in equal measure. That's the privilege that they have by paying the tickets and going to the games and sometimes not getting their value. I'm not sure how constructive it is. If a team doesn't put out a performance, then that's one thing. If a team dominates a game and individuals miss chances or make mistakes, I'm not sure the collective needs to be booed.
Right. Interesting that Tuchel, though, is not using it as an excuse. No Kante, Chilwell not available left side. Lukaku, he said he believes in everybody in the squad.
Yeah.
And he just can't find a solution, but he will. I still believe in him as a manager. I know that there's an appetite in the past to sack their managers when things go wrong. And just lately, they're conceding a lot more goals than they did before. But he's trying to get... The balance has gone a little bit. You're seeing their wing-backs get even higher up the pitch. Reece James, we're seeing on the edge of the opposition's box quite often. You're seeing Rudiger up the pitch. They're having to chase games because they're not putting the ball in the back of the net. The front players need to do more for them.
Sure. I must admit, when you see a banner at the beginning, Benitez, get out of our club, Simon, some of the Everton fans, I must admit, that's when I think, nah, you made a mess of that. Because after the 90 minutes, how are those banner unfurlers feeling? Because these kids went out and grafted. Not just for the team, but for Benitez.
Look, I mean, I've never been in that camp where I believe that managers should be shouted out. But fans have a right to air their views. They had a strong view. I mean, you've got to remember the backdrop to Benitez. I'm sorry, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Whilst I think he's a capable manager, and he will end up probably doing a decent job for Everton if he's given the time, because you can't deny the fact he's a capable manager. He's not going to put you into the high echelons of the league with what he's got at Everton. But the idea that you can wheel Benitez in with a backdrop of not only being an iconic Liverpool manager, but being incredibly diminishing of Everton in a previous incarnation, and now because it suits a window of opportunity because he wants to get back into the Premier League, he'll take the Everton job. The moment it goes wrong, there was always going to be a cross-section of Everton fans saying, by the way, we've got very long memories and we remember what you're all about. Now, of course, when you compound that with a team, when you put performances out like Everton did, and I go back to this every time I speak about them, against Watford, that was scandalous. That second half performance against Watford, who had just gotten smashed to pieces the previous week, I think, by Liverpool, had come up in the second half and absolutely destroyed Everton at home. You start to build an uprising amongst the Everton fans. I don't know whether he's going to be oversee it. I don't really care because I'm not a big fan of his. What I do care about is I think Everton is a great football club and deserves better from an owner that seems to have a propensity to put his hand in his pocket but never seem to pull out anything of meaning from it.
Yeah. What I will say, Martin, is that those fans were there last night.
I do think that's harsh because of the money. He's the only manager that hasn't really had any money to spend in recent years. I mean, you look at the players that have come into the football club since he's been there. Damari Gray coming in, not really spent a lot of money on him, has he?
Townsend.
Townsend.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think if you, maybe there's a change of direction going on there. They're trying to hold the fort until they can start to improve things. It was a Newcastle-like performance, wasn't it, under Benitez, what you saw last night, 5 at the back, resilient, hard to beat. They got a point out of it.
Right.
3 20-year-olds playing, which is great for the Everton academy. So there's a lot to be proud of last night, but it's going to have to improve. And he needs to get Calvert-Lewin back.
Sure.
Double quick into that team.
What I would say is those who unfurled the anti-Benitez banner, at least they were in London and they'd made the trip, as Everton fans do. So I commend them for that.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.